Good afternoon. Coffee, word, and leaf. It has been a week. It's been a week. Oh boy. Oh man, I'm usually doing this kind of thing on a Saturday, but I just needed today. I just really did. Decided to take a day off work. Just haven't been feeling good this week. I think it's the stress that's getting to me. I don't work in a big, important, stressful job in the grand scheme of things. I don't want to sound like that, but just a lot has been put on my plate this week. It's been my first full week as being active manager for basically half of the staff at the library that I work at, half of the departments. Usually I manage a team of 3 librarians in the adult services department. It's something I've been doing for years now. And this week has been my first full week of being active manager of the kids side of the library as well as the adult side of the library, because the youth side of the library, their manager had to take some time off. So now I'm the person in charge. Basically double the number of people that I'm managing, double the number of departments. So it is what it is. It's not a huge deal, but I just think the anxiety of it all has kind of gotten to me this week. So I needed to take a day of quiet with a pipe and a cup of coffee. I've been reading all day and listening to music all day. I woke up this morning just feeling tired but happy because I knew I was going to take the day off, and I wanted something to read, so I decided to start reading the story of King Arthur and his knights, written and illustrated by Howard Pyle. This was a book that was written in I believe 1901, very early 1900s, and it's supposed to be a children's retelling of the classic King Arthur stories. And I decided to read it now because I do love Arthuriana. I like reading about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. B, I love Malcolm Guite, and if you guys are pipe smokers and you're on YouTube, you've probably seen his videos before. But I am thrilled that his newest book is coming out soon, and it's the first of an epic trilogy, I believe, of King Arthur tales written in poetry. And I'm just getting very excited about that. It's coming out this summer. I already have it pre-ordered. I wanted to brush up on my Arthuriana before that came out, and this has always been on my list. Howard Pyle also wrote a retelling for children of the Robin Hood ballads that I read as a younger man. I'm also a lover of the old Robin Hood stories. Anything to do with Robin Hood, I absolutely adore. So I wanted to pick this one up because I knew I loved Sir Howard Pyle. So I'll read a little bit of that. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. I am smoking Haunted Bookshop because Carrie was actually talking about it in one of her videos. Shout out to Carrie. I've really been enjoying her channel. It's so calming. Like me, I think she likes to take it slow, take it quietly. I watched a video of her just sitting with her pipe and crocheting for 15 minutes or so. It was just nice to have on in the background while I was doing my own thing too. So, hi Carrie. I told you in the comments that I do like Haunted Bookshop. I don't smoke it too much, but I do every once in a while. It always kind of calls me back. So I'm going to smoke Haunted Bookshop again today and give it another try. Sip it slow, just like you told me to. Also, before I start reading, I wanted to give a VR to Sal Dog Piper. He's doing a giveaway. So I believe the first question was, how many bowls do you smoke in 1 week? It varies, but I would say probably 6 to 8 or 9. I usually smoke 1 a day. Sometimes I don't smoke any. Most of the time I do smoke 1 a day, sometimes 2. This is my second pipe of the day. Second question was, how many bowls do you smoke in, or how many bowls have you ever smoked, like the most amount of bowls that you've ever smoked in 1 day? I would say probably 5 or 6. I was out on a camping trip with some friends. The bourbon was flowing. The beer was flowing. I had my pipe. I was in the dark by a fire. You can't get much better than that. Sitting in a camp chair around the fire with some friends who were also, I had another friend there that was also a pipe smoker. So I probably had 5 or 6 bowls that day. That was a fun day. Still not very good at smoking a pipe and talking. I just can't keep it lit when I'm talking. That's okay. No hurry here. We don't get in a hurry in this channel, as Hobbiton Piper always said in his videos. No hurry here. I'm trying to think about how to describe Haunted Bookshop. It's almost leathery. A little sweet. Very dark, but with a hint of sweetness. Honestly, I mean, it doesn't remind me of the taste of a cigarette, but it reminds me of the smell of a cigarette when I taste it. If that makes sense. Which isn't a bad thing. I used to smoke cigarettes when I was in college. I don't anymore, but I remember opening the pack and smelling the tobacco and thinking it smelled like candy. Oh, it's beautiful out my window right now. It's snowing outside. Again, I needed today. So thank you for sharing it with me. It's just been such a good day to kind of reset. My family's going to get home tonight. We're going to go out, have a bite to eat. Friday nights are always our nights where we can kind of get together and have a bite. We don't see each other all that often during the week because of our work schedules. Life is just so busy, but that's okay. I mentioned what I was reading earlier, and I'll get to that in a second. But I've been listening to Bruce Springsteen all day. Just such a good musician and storyteller. I was watching some live concert footage from the 70s, and wow, was it a different time. At the end of one of his videos, there were a few young women who jumped the stage, and he just smiles at them. You know, nowadays they'd be tackled and thrown to the ground and thrown out of the venue, but a couple of women jumped on the stage and just kind of touched him and then kind of ran off when the security guards came up. But at the end of one of his songs, there were like 3 women who just jumped on top of him and started making out with him, and he loved it though, you could tell. Who wouldn't, right? Anyway, I digress. So, I wanted to read an excerpt from the story of King Arthur and his knights. And this is the point where King Arthur is shown as the true king. Earlier in the story, what happens is he is squire to his brother, and they travel to a tournament. And during the tournament, his brother, Sir Kay, breaks his sword. And so he calls Arthur over and tells Arthur, "You need to go fetch my sword at our pavilion, our camp." So he runs off and goes to fetch the sword, but he can't find one. But what he comes across, they're outside of London town, what he comes across is the sword and the stone. This tournament that they're at is in celebration of Christmas time, but also in celebration of the calling of a new king. For Merlin the Enchanter placed the sword and the stone outside of London town and called for any of these kings that have been squabbling in England and around it for kingship. He called them to come and take the sword from the stone. And whoever could do that would be the true king. So in just a few days before Christmas, all of these lesser kings were going to come to take what they thought was rightfully theirs, and they would all line up and try to take the sword. But that was to come. So Arthur, after not finding the sword in his family's pavilion for his brother, comes across the sword and the stone, and he just plucks it right out. And he doesn't know what he had. So he brings it back to his brother, and his brother recognizes the sword for what it is. And to make a long story short, his brother tried to trick Arthur and his father into thinking that he was the one that got the sword from the stone, that he was going to be king. But it didn't work out that way. But Merlin came, saw that Arthur had the sword, and saw Arthur for the true king that he truly was, and decided that they would kind of keep him behind closed doors until the time was right, and now is the time. All of the kings have lined up for Christmas at the sword to pluck it from the stone to be the true king. And now it's Arthur's turn. Merlin brings him forth in a dramatic fashion. Thereupon Arthur went to the cube of marble stone, and he laid his hands upon the haft of the sword that was thrust into the anvil. And he bent his body and drew very strongly, and lo, the sword came forth with great ease and very smoothly. And when he had got the sword into his hands, he swung it about his head so that it flashed like lightning. And after he had swung it thus thrice about his head, he set the point thereof against the face of the anvil, and bore upon it very strongly. And behold, the sword slid very smoothly back again into that place where it had aforetime stood. And when it was there, midway deep, it stood fast where it was. And thus did Arthur successfully accomplish that marvelous miracle of the sword in the eyes of all the world. Now when the people who were congregated at that place beheld this miracle performed before their faces, they lifted up their voices all together and shouted so vehemently and with so huge a tumult of outcry that it was as though the whole earth rocked and trembled within the sound of their shouting. And while they shouted, and Arthur took hold of the sword again and drew it forth and swung it again and again and again, drave it back into the anvil. And when he had done that, he drew it forth a third time and did the same thing as before. Thus it was that all those who were there beheld that miracle performed 3 times over. And all the kings and dukes who were there were filled with great amazement, and they wist not what to think or to say when they beheld one who was little more than a boy perform that undertaking in which the best of them had failed. And some of them, seeing that miracle, were willing to acknowledge Arthur because of it, but others would not acknowledge him. These withdrew themselves and stood aloof, and as they stood thus apart, they said among themselves, "What is this, and who can accredit such a thing, that a beardless boy should be set before us all, and should be made king and overlord of this great realm for to govern us? Nay, nay, we will have none of him for our king." And others said, "It is not apparent that Merlin and Sir Ulfius are thus exalting this unknown boy, so that they may elevate themselves along with him?" Thus these discontented kings spake among themselves, and of all of them the most bitter were King Lot and King Uriens, who were brothers by marriage with Arthur. Now when the archbishop perceived the discontent of these kings and dukes, he said to them, "How now, messires? Are ye not satisfied?" And they said, "We are not satisfied." And the archbishop said, "What would ye have?" And they said, "We would have another sort of king for Britain than a beardless boy of whom no one knoweth, and of whose birthright there are only 3 men to attest." And the archbishop said, "What of that? Hath he not performed the miracle that ye yourselves essayed and failed to perform?" But these high and mighty lords would not be satisfied, but with angry and averted faces they went away from that place, filled with wrath and indignation. But others of these kings and dukes came and saluted Arthur and paid him court, giving him joy of that which he had achieved. And the chiefest of those who came thus unto him in friendliness was King Leodegrance of Cameliard. And all the multitude acknowledged him, and crowded around that place, shouting so that it sounded like to the noise of thunder. Now all this while Sir Ector and Sir Kay had stood upon one side. That's Arthur's brother, Sir Kay, and his adopted father, Sir Ector. And they were greatly weighed down by sorrow. For it appeared to them that Arthur had, of a sudden, been uplifted so far from their estate that they may never hope to approach him more. For now he was of kingly consequence, and they but common knights. And after a while Arthur beheld them where they stood with downcast looks, whereupon he straightway went to them, and took first one and then the other by the hand, and kissed each upon the cheek. Thereupon they were again very glad at being thus uplifted upon him. And when Arthur departed from that place, great crowds of people followed after him, so that the streets were altogether filled with the press of people, and the multitude continually gave him loud acclaim as the chosen king of England. And those who were nearest to him sought to touch the hem of his garments. Wherefore the heart of Arthur was exceedingly uplifted with great joy and gladness, so that his soul took wing and flew like a bird into the sky. Thus Arthur achieved the adventure of the sword that day and entered into his birthright of royalty. Wherefore may God grant his grace unto you all, that ye too may likewise succeed in your undertakings. For any man may be a king in that life in which he is placed, if so he may draw forth the sword of success from out of the iron of circumstance. Wherefore, when your time of assay cometh, I do hope it may be with you as it was with Arthur that day, in that ye too may achieve success with entire satisfaction unto yourself, and to your great glory and perfect happiness. Amen. That's Howard Pyle's little aside at the end. At the end of each chapter, he addresses the reader and gives a prayer of happiness or a prayer of hope or just some kind of little aside to basically say that Arthur's story is much like our own. Even the lowliest of people can rise to be great. Even if you think you are only but a boy or a squire to a great knight, you can still do great things in this world. It really does remind me of the story of Jesus here, especially when he's walking away as the newly appointed king. They sought to touch the hem of his garments. I'm very interested in reading this book and seeing how Arthur is portrayed as a Jesus figure. It's going to be interesting. But anyway, we'll talk more about Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table soon, probably this spring, when Malcolm Guite's book comes out, Sir Galahad and the Grail. It's going to be great. I cannot wait. Anyway, it's good to see you all on this snowy Friday. May peace be with you all. May God be with you all. I hope you all enjoy some good smokes and some good quiet time with your family. Have a nice day.